There's lots of reasons to be frustrated right now, as the Brewers proved on Father's Day why they are the Cincinnati Reds' daddy.
You are Locked On Reds, your daily Cincinnati Reds podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Reds. My name is Jeff Carr. His name is Steve Offenbaker, and we are so glad that you're alongside us today. We've loved the Reds since birth, basically, and this is my sixth season. This is Steve's third season with me. He's also done 3 seasons by himself, podcasting about the Reds. We love this Cincinnati Reds team, and we are bringing it to you every single day. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. We try to make Locked On Reds for everybody. We try to be positive because, quite frankly, sometimes they make it hard to do. And we'll also dive into some geeky stats. We'll overreact to the everyday movements of the Major League Baseball marathon of a season, because quite frankly, there's quite a bit to overreact to, especially on today's podcast. I'm glad you're here, because we've got to break this down. It's frustrating, man. The way this series ended for the Reds, the way this series went for the Reds is super frustrating. But who, at least on the field, should be the most frustrated? Well, we'll answer that here in just a moment. We're also going to look at a bullpen decision and why it was wrong, and why there's a ranking that the Reds should have that we have, because it's not really that hard to get. We'll talk about that. And later on in today's show, we'll look ahead at what's coming on tonight with Paul Skenes. The Paul Skenes show faces Elly De La Cruz and the Reds. That's all in today's podcast that is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $200 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. And Steve, where we are getting started today is Frustration Station, my friend, because Sunday was a very frustrating game for myriads of reasons. There was this, there was that, there was the post-game interview from David Bell. I kind of want to start there, because let's throw it out this way. The Reds have lost 8 straight series to the Milwaukee Brewers. 8 straight series to the Milwaukee Brewers. I'm so frustrated I just hit the intro video again. And David Bell is coming on the mic after the game, and when he's asked about that losing streak, this is what he has to say.
Not one person has thought about that, talked about it. I didn't even know that. We're one game at a time, one pitch at a time. We continue to play the way we did today. We're going to be just fine. So we'll look forward to the next opportunity to play this team. They're a good team.
Give me a break. Everybody in that locker room knows that they've lost 8 straight series to the Milwaukee Brewers. Everybody in that clubhouse knows that the Milwaukee Brewers have been their daddy and continue to be their daddy. And David Bell is living in La La Land. And I think he was hoping to distract from the fact that he's probably the guy that cost the Reds this game today.
His decision to bring in Lucas Sims, we will definitely get to here in just a minute, but the big picture of this is the fact that the Reds lost this game. They could have not necessarily exercised the demon, because they still got to play more series against the Brewers and all that other stuff, but they were up 3-0 in this ball game. They end up losing 5-4, and there were many opportunities that they had to win the ball game. They didn't take advantage of them. The Brewers took advantage of their opportunities. And as frustrated as I am that it feels like the Brewers get a ton of breaks, at the end of the day, they just continue to be better. And as much as I continue to say there's going to be regression, as much as I continue to say I think the Brewers are getting lucky, it doesn't matter, because the Reds keep losing to them. And if they want to get where they want to get, they got to beat the Brewers. And David Bell's over here saying, we're going to take it one day at a time. We're not really talking about that. We're not really worried about the losing streak. Yes, you should be. And if you aren't, you shouldn't be this team's manager.
Exactly. This team needs to start playing with a sense of urgency, and that starts at the top. And I don't know that David Bell has ever had a sense of urgency in his whole life, at least not when there's a camera in front of his face. For me, Jeff, as bad as that statement is, this was one of those things, when they won the first game of this series, I said at the time, that felt like one of those games that the Reds should have lost, and the baseball gods decided for whatever reason, thank you, here, we will take that win. And then that ship kind of righted itself, because looking at the game on Sunday, they should have won that game. That is a game that the Reds should have won. They should have won this series 2 out of 3. They were never going to sweep the Brewers, but they should have won this series 2 out of 3. So let's get into the nuts and bolts now of why it is that they lost. It comes down, when it's all said and done, after they blew the lead, after the questionable pitching decision that we're going to get into in the next segment, they still had an opportunity to win this game. All of the stars were aligning. Stuart Fairchild's at second base with 2 outs. They walk Elly. Here comes Santiago Espinal, who is subbed into the game. And believe it or not, as bad as he's been overall offensively, he does a thing with runners in scoring position. He's hitting nearly 300 with runners in scoring position, and he did not disappoint. He lays down the perfect single to center field that for 9 times out of 10 should have scored the run. But here's the problem. Stuart Fairchild, the thing. I have talked time and time again about how Stuart Fairchild has mental lapses in the field, and he can give you all-star caliber defense 1 minute, and the next minute looks like you need to coach him up at the little league level. With 2 outs and a runner on second, you are moving on contact. Stuart Fairchild
head down running. Yes.
Head down running. Stuart Fairchild had a minuscule lead at second base. Then there's contact, and he runs, and instead of going full charge, he's trying to look and find the ball. That is the whole reason for the existence of J.R. House. You run, and House will let you know if you're staying or if you're going. By turning back, he slowed himself down. He lost at least a step, and that's the step that was the out at the plate. That out is on Stuart Fairchild.
And I find it interesting because you and I were discussing this play before we hit record, and you're like, man, I don't know. I don't necessarily know. I didn't see what everybody's complaining about, but there's a lot of people complaining about it, so I think we need to address it. The reason that we're going so hard on this is because David Bell was asked. David Bell was asked about this play, and they said, Mark Sheldon from MLB.com said, don't you think that, he didn't score, and that was kind of on Fairchild? And this was David Bell's response to that.
I agree. I mean, I think off the bat, we all thought it was a run for sure with Stewart's speed. Looking at it, looked like he had a good lead, a good secondary lead. They were also trying to tie him up, being able to try to steal a base right there. But, I mean, in the end, it was just a great play by their center fielder. Got to it quick, was playing pretty shallow, and made a perfect throw.
That's an answer that has 2 parts. It's funny because the first part makes a lot of sense. Yes, he should have scored, and that game should have been tied, and at the very least they should have went to extras and tried out the ghost runner thing and see who won with that. But on the second part of that, he's talking about they're timing up a steal. Who's timing up a double steal with 2 outs in the 9th inning, down 1 on the road? That makes no sense whatsoever. But this whole thing, the play that Fairchild made, for me, I think that Santiago Espinal, as much as Frankie Montas has a right to be frustrated with how the game went for him, I think Santiago Espinal has every right to be super frustrated as well, because you come up with 2 outs and a runner in scoring, 2 runners on. You got Elly on first. If Elly's on base, he's in scoring position, so technically there's 2 runners in scoring position, and he comes up with a beautiful 2-out hit that would have kept the inning going, that would have kept Spencer, or that would have brought Spencer Steer to the plate with Elly
at third base. Yep.
Yeah, in scoring position. And you have all of this momentum in the world, and Stuart Fairchild's worried about where the ball is with 2 outs. Like, stop it. Stop it. That is such a frustrating play to me. And oh, by the way, Elly had a heck of a day. He should be frustrated too. I think at the end of the day, if we're going to rank this, I think Frankie Montas has the right to be the most frustrated. Look, I know he wasn't perfect. In fact, you could make the argument that Colin Ray outpitched him, but he pitched out of jams. It was a jam in the 1st, got out of it. Jam in the 5th, got out of it. He gets into a jam in the 6th, and for some reason, he's not given a chance to get out of it, and he is pulled for Lucas Sims, who we will discuss in a moment why that was the wrong move, but the very first pitch, as he is still fuming in the dugout, by goes the lead, and goes the game, eventually. But he then goes into the locker room. I thought he had every right to do that. I would have done that, and I think you would too.
And David Bell said in that first clip, Jeff, that Montas was getting a little bit of a pitch count. 89 pitches. He was at 89 pitches after that runner got on. I don't buy it. David Bell pulled the trigger too soon. He hooked him too quickly. Should have given him at least one more batter, because in the grand scheme of things, you go to a reliever. Actually, I'm saving that. I'm going to save that for the next segment because I got some things to say about what's been going on with Lucas Sims. But I agree. Montas should be frustrated. Elly De La Cruz should be frustrated. What a game. What a game that he put up. And mostly a series he was good. Spencer Steer was on fire. If Stuart Fairchild doesn't make that out, Steer's coming to the plate with Elly at third. There are a lot of options there. That gives you a lot of things you can do.
Boy,
and you best believe that the pitcher was going to be worrying about Elly at third, because, Spencer might not have even had to put the ball in play in order to get Elly home, depending on what happens. So it's frustrating for me as a fan. It's frustrating for me covering this team that this one got away the way that it did. I have been accused all season long of unfairly bashing Stuart Fairchild, but this is the stuff that I've been talking about, these mental lapses that cost your team games. And we've seen him do that multiple times. Now, I have conceded that he's better than a 4A player when you bat him in the right situations against left-handed pitching and when he's playing good defense. But these mental lapses cannot continue for a team that's trying to make up ground. It's a 2-game swing. His mental lapse is a 2-game swing right now. They would be 6 games back instead of 8 if Stuart Fairchild had run on contact.
And that's the most frustrating part about this, is that we see where this team can go. We know what they have to do to get there, and they're constantly not doing it. That is where the biggest frustration is starting to mount. There's still plenty of time left in the season, but that is why there's an alternate universe where Spencer Steer comes up with Elly De La Cruz on third and the game is tied, and we are spending this amount of energy being excited at the fact that the Reds won the game. That alternate universe is a lot happier right now.
All right, Jeff, coming up, there is more to talk about, and David Bell had some more things to say. We're not done with David Bell. We're going to talk about the pitching decisions coming up next. Summertime means baseball, the NBA Finals, and more. And you can get in on all of the action over at FanDuel. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets back with any winning $5 bet. That's right. Place one $5 bet, and if your bet hits, you're going to get $200 in your account in bonus bets back. That's $200 that you can use on everything from the MVP of the NBA Finals to who's going to hit one out of the park for your Cincinnati Reds. Jeff talks all the time about his Elly De La Cruz parlay. If you had played that yesterday, you would have won big, because that Elly parlay is 1+ steal, 1+ run scored, and 2+ total bases. Elly had all of that. Jeff has done better more often than not with that parlay. You should give it a try for yourself. To get in on the action, just head over to FanDuel.com/lockedon, and you can win big on your first bet of just $5 or more with $200 back in bonus bets. That's FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook.
And baseball season is moving right along, and you can make some cash with Elly performances over at PrizePicks. Whether it's stolen bases, homers, or just hits, or, all kinds of different stuff. PrizePicks has the most categories that you can take advantage of, because all you have to do is find your favorite players, your favorite statistics, and click more or less on those numbers. It's that easy. When you combine 2 or more picks, you increase your chances at winning big. In fact, in some cases, with just 4 selections, you can make up to 100 times your money. That's all over at PrizePicks. And it's so easy to do. Like I said, find your favorite players like Elly, who's on a tear after a great weekend in Milwaukee, and find your favorite statistics like, let's say, stolen bases, and click more on that stat and watch the money roll in. You can use the promo code LOCKEDONMLB for up to $100 match on your first deposit. Again, promo code LOCKEDONMLB will get you a $100 match on your first deposit, up to $100 match on your first deposit. All you have to do is pick more or pick less. It's really that easy.
If you haven't done so yet, you have got to check out Locked On Sports today. It's a free 24/7 sports streaming channel programmed for you every day to bring you the biggest stories. Locked On Sports today brings you can't miss analysis, opinion, and news. It streams 24/7 on YouTube or for free on the Amazon Fire TV channels app. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. All right, Jeff, we have talked about some of David Bell's comments from the post-game presser, and there's another one, actually another decision and his comments on it that really just, man, I just don't know. David Bell goes to Lucas Sims there in the 6th with Frankie Montas maybe struggling, maybe, I don't know. I think that they went to him at least a batter too soon. Montas should have been given the opportunity at 89 pitches to try and work through that thing. But you go to Lucas Sims, who there's no nice way to put this. And listen, Lucas Sims is a great guy. He's on this show every single offseason. He's a friend of the podcast, but we have to call this what it is right now. He has not been good lately. In his last 7 games, Jeff, he's pitched 6 innings. He's allowed 7 hits in those 6 innings. He's walked 5 batters. He's got a 4.5 ERA over that time. It is not good. He has not been good. When he is giving up contact, we're talking about hard fly ball contact that is not going to get it done. I just think he's not right. I think there's something wrong.
Yeah, I find it hard to admit this, but when they've been calling on him recently, there has been a bit of, okay, cringe. Yeah, that's what I'm feeling, is whenever they've been calling on Lucas Sims. And you're right, like statistically, he is giving up 27% ground ball rate. That's horrible. In fact, according to Baseball Savant, StatCast, and all that stuff, that's the 1 percentile of pitchers. That's the lowest percentile ranking. And so that is a tough pill to swallow. But then you add in this, because he comes into a situation where there are 2 men on, inherited runners. We talk about this a lot when it comes to relief pitchers. Inherited runners are just the guys on base when the pitcher enters the ball game. He didn't let him on base. It was the guy that he's relieving. And you know, just for future reference, in extra innings, ghost runners do not count toward inherited runners, but that's beside the point. So inherited runners, and then you have inherited runner scoring position, percentage of inherited runners allowed to score. League average is 35%. The Reds have 5 pitchers, or at least they did before this game, that are better than 35%. Lucas Sims was one of them, but he still wasn't that great. He was kind of close to that number. Now he has allowed 6 of 16 inherited runners to score. That's a percentage of 37%, and he's still 5th best on the team, which means there are 4 guys that you should have looked at first. And we're not saying numbers that we just pulled out of a random corner of FanGraphs. We're not saying numbers that teams don't know. Teams have this stuff. This is definitely something that is in the Reds' purview. There are 4 guys that they could have went to other than Lucas Sims. And of course, first that we think of is Fernando Cruz, who is technically 4th on the team, a 17% rate of allowing inherited runners to score, but he's been fantastic so far this year. And then there were some people that wondered if he was available. He's warming up later.
He's faced the most inherited runners on the team, more than anybody else on the team. He's come in, and he's faced 24 inherited runners, only allowing 4 to score. So while he does have a 17%, there, he's faced inherited runners more than anybody else on the team. And so David Bell was specifically asked about that. Why not go to Fernando Cruz? Everyone settle in and listen as David Bell deflects.
Sure. Right there, Frankie starting the inning had a low pitch count. And we had Lucas ready down in the order a little bit at Ortiz. The bats went a little bit longer. First 2 guys get on, and absolutely trust Lucas there. He's done it many times in the 6th inning, 8th, 9th, whatever the situation. So, for sure Fernando was going to factor into that game. But we had Lucas ready right there.
For sure Fernando was going to factor in. Why not there? Why not there? Because that was not the answer. That was not an answer to the question. Unless the answer was, well, Lucas Sims was the one that was warming up, so that's the guy we went with. It's like, no, David, like, the question is why not Fernando Cruz there? And I'm sure he could have gotten up and gotten ready during the time of that long at bat with Joey Ortiz. And just at the end of the day, it felt like a very weird answer to the question, as if, I don't know, like, I told you this off air. Like, I tried to work through it mentally. I'm like, why did they go with Lucas Sims here? And it's like, well, is Cruz not available? False. He warmed up later in the game. He never came into the ball game, but he was warming up in the 7th. Okay, so are we trying to get Lucas Sims some more work with inherited runners? Well, okay, that's an answer, but that's not a good one, because when you're facing the Brewers, you play to win the game. It's not like, let's develop stuff. Like, at this point where this team is, you got to be going to win. Fernando Cruz is the guy that you pick in that scenario. And there's 3 other guys as well that you could have looked at and could have made a case for.
You know, his answer just drips of, you know, I'm going with my veteran there. He's been there before. He's done it before. Well, this is a what have you done for me lately league, ladies and gentlemen. And Lucas Sims has had his struggles. And in a game, you absolutely have to win. If you truly believe that Frankie Montas cannot go one more batter, then you're managing to win. And I don't care what Lucas Sims did 3 years ago. I'm worried about what Lucas Sims is doing right now. He's giving up hard fly ball contact. Let's not go to him right now. Let's get a better pitcher in a better situation. And you can use Lucas later. You can slot him into moments where you have a cushion until he figures out what's going on. You know, Lucas Sims was out with that back injury a few years ago. Backs are notoriously nagging injuries that come and go and haunt. And I really, truly believe he's just not quite right now. I don't think he's forgotten how to pitch. I don't think he's forgotten how to be good. I think there's something wrong. And if I'm seeing it and recognizing it, and he doesn't look quite right and comfortable, somebody on this team that's in the dugout with him should also be recognizing that. And I just don't think they're doing that. So that leaves us with where are we going to rate these relievers? Who did we want to go to? Well, I wanted Fernando Cruz. You wanted Fernando Cruz. Fernando Cruz is the right decision there for me. If we're saving Fernando Cruz, God knows why. Lucas Sims, I still don't think is the right answer. I think you go to a Justin Wilson or a Sam Moll.
I agree. And even the numbers agree. The numbers even say that Justin Wilson has a lower percentage. Sam Moll has a lower percentage than even Fernando Cruz. Now, they faced less situations like this. Justin Wilson has inherited 17 runners, only allowed 2 of them to score. Sam Moll has only inherited 4 runners and has allowed none of them to score. So percentage-wise, obviously, 0%. That's pretty nice. And then you also have Alexis Diaz, who has a 0% inherited runner scoring percentage. He's only inherited 8 of them. And we talked about this. It's hard to rank him as like the number 1 fireman, because right now they're pitching him in the Raisel Iglesias role, where it's like, if it ain't a save situation, he ain't warming up. And I hate that. You hate that. We've talked about how many times we've hate that. Everydayers will know how much we hate the fact that you pigeonhole a guy into save situations and nothing else, because then you have a hard time pitching him in a lot of different cases. But that was a scenario where you look at this and you say, this is a huge point in this game. And if I'm going to pull the trigger as quickly as I pull it, you want your best guy in there, and it didn't seem like he made that decision.
Yeah, I think that, you know, as much as I bagged on Stuart Fairchild as problem 1A that went wrong in this game yesterday, Jeff, David Bell's decision-making was probably problem 1B. You've got to manage to win. And I don't think that he necessarily does that all the time. I think he lets his, I'm going to be the veterans manager, get in the way of making good baseball decisions.
Well, and let's tie this back into his comments as well, of like the whole, oh, we're not worried about that. Nobody's talking about that. Like, you should be. Like, this is the perfect example of where you should be. You should be talking about the eight series losing streak. You should be talking about figuring out how to be better than these guys, because the Brewers, they're just better. The Brewers are just better right now, and that is really frustrating to admit. But the Brewers series is over. On goes the Major League season, and here come the Pirates, because on deck tonight, Elly De La Cruz goes up against Paul Skenes. I'll tell you why that's going to be very interesting coming up next. Get supplies from the site that's made for the skilled trades, SupplyHouse.com. SupplyHouse.com is the reliable way to order plumbing, HVAC, and electrical products online. Their easy-to-use website is packed with helpful resources and the latest product info to help you get the job done right. Shop a complete inventory of over 200,000 parts from over 400 top brands and get your order delivered right to your door with fast shipping from coast to coast. If you need help with an order, they've got the expert support and industry-leading service folks from the friendliest people in the business. And all you do is you talk to a real person every single time. I mean, who loves talking to a machine? Supply House, you talk to a real person. Join the thousands of trade pros already benefiting from their free membership at supplyhouse.com/TM. Order plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies from anywhere with just a few clicks at supplyhouse.com. Again, that's free membership at supplyhouse.com/TM. You can catch every pitch of the Reds' hometown broadcast with SiriusXM. Just download the SXM app and search the word Reds. Also, you can get written content about your Cincinnati Reds at CincinnatiRedsTalk.com. Make sure you bookmark it today. All right, Steve, Paul Skenes. Actually, the Reds are going to Pittsburgh. I was about to say Paul Skenes is coming to town, but the Reds are going to Pittsburgh. So the Reds are going to Paul Skenes. In fact, the Pirates decided that this was big enough. They're going to push him back. And oh, by the way, on top of the Paul Skenes matchup that we have, O'Neill Cruz is actually healthy. So we're going to get Elly and O'Neill on the same field together, and that's going to be a lot of fun to watch as well. I can't wait for this.
These are two really exciting players for the Pittsburgh Pirates. And there's, I think, something to be said for pushing Paul Skenes back. One, to have him face the Reds, who everyone is battling to make up ground in the National League Central. And, it gets Paul Skenes a home start in a big situation, which has got to be good for Pittsburgh's bottom line. So I get why they pushed him back. Paul Skenes in his young major league career, Jeff, has been phenomenal. He's 3-0 in 6 starts. In those 6 starts, he has struck out 46 batters while walking just 6. He's good for a strikeout per 9 of 12.4 and a walk per 9 of 1.6. He has been very, very, very good very early in his career.
He has an average fastball velocity of 99.3. Average. That's insane. Like the stuff that the Reds are going to see, and that's not even his best pitch. Like, according to Baseball Savant, they assign run values to the different types of pitches and stuff like that. His off-speed stuff is what's going to get you, because his splitter is awesome, and he is able to tunnel it. And this is something that I've seen a lot of people talking about when it comes to Paul Skenes' game. He's able to throw 99 wherever he wants it, and then he's able to drop in that split finger, which comes in at 94, which is still really fast for a split finger, but it's going to fall off the table on you. So if you think you're getting a fastball and you're trying to time it up, then you're about 6 inches above where the pitch actually crosses the plate. So it's going to be very interesting to see exactly how the Reds match up with him in this, because the Reds, it's weird because you can see them working. You can see the strategy moving as they're facing different pitchers. And the fact that he doesn't walk a lot of people, that means they're going to be aggressive tomorrow or tonight. And that's going to be a problem because he generates so many swings and misses, like none of his pitches. So the 2 pitches that he throws the most are his fastball and his split finger. Both of those have a whiff rate of better than 31%. That's insane.
You talked about O'Neill Cruz being back and playing for the Pirates as well. He's having a pretty good start to his year. His slash line right now, Jeff, 248, 300, 432. He's got 9 home runs, 28 RBIs. Interestingly enough, he's only stolen 5 bases. So I wonder just how right his ankle is. I would have had him pegged prior to that ankle injury last year as an Elly De La Cruz type base stealer. Not quite as good as Elly maybe, but more than 5 stolen bases this far in the season, especially when you consider that Elly's pushing 40 right? You would expect that O'Neal Cruz would run a little bit more. It's going to be an exciting game. This Pittsburgh team is fun to watch, and I enjoy watching them when they're not playing the Reds, because they have a lot of young talent like the Reds that it's fun to root for. It's fun to pull for. But in this situation, we need the Reds to win, and being tasked with beating the Pittsburgh Pirates and shutting down O'Neal Cruz in this lineup, making his first, is it his first big league start of the year? I believe that it is. Let me pull up my cheat sheet.
I think he's only pitched in long relief.
Yeah, he's pitched in 5 games, all in relief, making his first start of this season. Carson Spires is going to be going against Paul Skenes. So, Spires has had a good 2024 thus far. He's made it into 5 games, a 2.33 ERA, strikeouts per 9 right now at 7, not bad. Walks per 9, 1.9, which is very good. So I think that Carson has earned this start with what he's done when the Reds have asked him to pitch at the big league level. I think he's earned this start. Now, you and I have talked like off air when we're prepping that his peripherals make you wonder how successful he could be as a big league starter over the long haul. Time's going to tell what those numbers look like, but I don't mind this so much. I don't mind them giving him a start against the Pirates. I think he's earned it. And let's see what he can do. Graham Ashcraft made his first minor league start yesterday and allowed a few runs, gave up 3 runs during his AAA debut.
4 strikeouts and a walk. Yeah.
So if Carson can hold down the fort while Graham continues to work on things and be a good number 5 starter, then great.
Yeah, this is going to be interesting because he's coming off his most successful outing. It was still a relief outing, but his most successful outing of his major league career. So he's heard a lot of people saying a lot of things about him, I'm sure. And you're going to be going up against this guy in Paul Skenes that everybody's talking about. So I'm sure there's going to be a little bit of added adrenaline whenever he hits the mound in the bottom of the first inning on Monday night. But he's got to kind of push past all that, and he's got to play his game. This is not a thing where he can go pitch for pitch with Paul Skenes because it ain't happening. Paul Skenes is being looked at as a next Steven Strasburg. He's being looked at as a next Justin Verlander for so many different things. And there's people that have questions about his arm. How long is his arm going to keep up? How long is he going to have to go till Tommy John? I'm not going to get into any of that right now. But looking at this, Carson Spires can't go out here and be like, I'm going to go strikeout for strikeout, all this. Mm-hmm. He's just got to play his game. He's got to pitch to miss barrels. He's got to pitch to be efficient, get in, get out, get the lineup back on the field. That's what he's got to be focused on. Yeah,
just let your defense work for you. He's not going to overpower the Pittsburgh lineup. I don't see him as that type of pitcher. Let your defense work, keep your team in the game, and good things can happen. Again, Paul Skenes, as good as he's been, is still a rookie. He's never faced the Reds. Get him the second, third time through the lineup. Maybe good things can happen. You just have to keep the Reds in the game.
It's going to be I'm worried that they are going to come in with this aggressive thing. They're going to have to figure out a way to make him work. If it's just throwing you bat out there, trying to foul off whatever he's got and force him to throw a lot of pitches, because it feels like everything's been super efficient. You constantly see tweets about, oh my gosh, he had 11 pitch inning and he got 3 strikeouts, something like that. Like it feels like there's a lot of that surrounds Paul Skenes, and this Reds lineup, when they're patient, can really do some damage. So I'm going to be interested to see how this game plays out. I'm not touching any sort of run line or anything like that because, they could run into a few. I mean, Elly De La Cruz, the first 100 mile an hour fastball that crosses the plate that Elly swings at, oh boy, I think that's going into the river. I don't even know if Paul Skenes throws him a fastball. It might just be a bunch of split finger pitches, but this matchup is going to be so much fun to watch. And I'm very curious to see how the Reds handle it. And that is where we will end today's podcast. Thanks, everybody, so much for checking out today's Locked On Reds podcast. Make sure that you're following the podcast on all your favorite platforms, including right here on YouTube. If you watched us, make sure you jump down in the comments section. Let us know any old thing. We love talking Reds baseball with you, and we're going to be talking Reds baseball with you all throughout the season. Win, lose, or draw, they're not going to draw because that doesn't happen. But when it comes to the Cincinnati Reds, we'll be here with you all the time because coming up on tomorrow's show, I'm going to be flying solo. Schedule's kind of mixed up here with Steve and myself, and it's just going to be me, and we're going to be talking about this Paul Skenes start, looking ahead to the rest of the series with the Pirates and what the Reds can expect. And later on this week, we will be going live on Friday afternoon, so make sure you join us for a Friday live show where we talk with you and you drive the ship. But until then, Steve, what can people expect from you and me?
We're going to keep gathering up all of the information, monitoring all of the rumors, watching these Reds, bringing all the information back here to keep you locked on Reds every single day.
You know,
could Elly have like 150 mile per hour exit velocity if he gets a hold of one of those?
Totally.